is the star of stage, screen, and playfield, Todd Tuckey.
Thanks, Dave. It's good to be back. We were here last year. How many of you were here last year's seminar? Gosh, most of you. That's good. So you liked it enough you came back. We have a couple newbies there, I know. Their first time here. We're hoping not to bore you. We think, I'm going to move this up just a hair so I don't have to bend over. Good. We think that this seminar will be both rewarding and fun. We have zero practice on it. We only got the chance to see the $6 Million Man about 30 minutes ago. But what we did, which is unusual, is when Dave said, you know, we've got to come up with some kind of a seminar idea, I asked Frank, I said, what do you think we should do? And Frank says, why don't we rebuild a machine? But there's not enough time, not in 2 hours. It typically takes 20 to 30 hours to rebuild a machine. So we decided we'd do it a different way. We're going to speed it up because we had a $6 Million Man, Frank's favorite system. I think we say that in the video too. This is the Bally system, Bally Stearns from 77 to 84, I think are pretty much the most stable, especially in the early games. And these are very easy to redo if you have 20 or 30 hours. But we had a $6 Million Man at the shop, so I asked if you guys had one. And they said, yeah, we do. We have one that's unshopped. And of course, yesterday I had this terror. I said, where's the $6 Million Man? There's only one, and it's in the play area, and it looks beautiful. I said, that can't be the one we're doing. And we thought it was until late last night, and we realized there was one still in somebody's truck that we were going to do. So anyway, what we did is we shot the $6 Million Man over a period of 5 days at TNT, filming at different times, so you'll see our clothes change, that sort of thing, but try to make it seamless. And Frank, we're going to frequently stop during the show. We haven't tried this interactive part of the video yet. There's just no time. It took Frank and I 50 hours to make what you're going to see and put it together and edit it and add all the goofy stuff. And, you know, we like goofy stuff. If you watch our videos, we're almost at 1,400 YouTube videos. Most of them are high def. We're just crossing the 23,000 subscriber line. So last night I think it was 22,955 or 955, 58, something like that. But we're still trying to do a reality show. My most recent endeavor is not quite Pinball, but a high executive of the Travel Channel contacted our reality show guys that made the original show that goes back 7 years ago. And she fell in love with a video I made, you may not have seen, on a reproducing piano. It's a player piano made in 1920 that reproduces the performance of the person who recorded it. There's virtually none left in existence. They stopped making them in 1936. And Frank and I made a 1-hour video. It took us about 8 hours. And in my home, that's where I have this machine. And we played 3 rolls, explain it. The piano appears that there's a ghost sitting at it and playing it because the pedals move as it was recorded. We heard something by George Gershwin, who loved the player piano, the reproducing. And he himself recorded 500 or 600 songs. And it sounds like somebody's sitting there playing it. All the pianos you've heard, they're just mechanical and they bang out the melody. Bang, 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 just relentless. You can sit at the piano, push the pedals and change some of the expression, but these pianos did this. Well, anyway, this lady fell in love from Travel Channel. She wants me to travel the United States and explore Americana, which is great, except I don't know a whole lot about Americana. So I sent her some clips. If you watch my videos, I have some travel videos where I do the Pennsylvania State Fair, the film shows I do down in Wildwood, but special stuff like the Randy Senna Arcade, which apparently because of my video, the township, the Wildwood Borough, who had given them a 0, you can't open. Thank you. That's Obi. Obi is famous for buying the Cybernaut pinball machine. And that's the one where my wife's head floats around and aggravates me. But thank you, Obi. I'll catch you later. Thank you. Anyway, getting back to the videos, she wants me to shoot more footage, so I'm going to next week. I told her I can't do anything until this next week. We're going to go and shoot some video about a merry-go-round that's nearby that's about 120 years old. I don't know anything about it. I know what a merry-go-round is, I know it turns, and there's a motor that runs it. So I have to do some research, and I'm also meeting up with a man that has the whole history of it, and I have to learn it real quick. And then I have to appear. Wow, isn't this amazing? Can you believe this thing is 110 years old? Now it runs by this old motor in the base here. Let me show you that. So I have to make what they call a sizzle reel, and to see if she thinks it would work. And we'd have a segment, and we'd do 6 or 8 episodes. And I understand they're 22-minute episodes because it's a 30-minute block. And it may go where I'll be able to do Randy Senna footage. Then he reopened the arcade. I kind of dropped you off the planet there. Randy Senna's arcade to finish up. He was denied an arcade. We made the video. The video went viral in the Wildwood, I guess, tourists section. They posted the video, and they got a lot of letters written. And 2 weeks later, Randy got a unanimous approval to open the arcade. So it went from 0 to hero. So Randy's arcade is supposed to be open in time for July 4th when I go down there. Randy Senna is an amazing man, possibly the smartest man I've ever met. I've never seen anything like it. He loves old games, loves pinballs. He worked for 7 or 8 years. He ran Main Street, Disney World. He ran it. He was in the center, and as a matter of fact, the crew used to say it was, what they call it, Senna Avenue or something. I can't remember now. I don't know if it's in one of the videos, but you'll be able to see that. It'll be like pinballs, arcade games. That'll be really nice. We're going to go down and film the video once he opens it up. So maybe that Travel Channel thing will click, and I'll be able to introduce pinball. We'll do one. I told her we want to do 1 episode on pinball machines, so she didn't have a problem with that. We'll do a Randy Senna episode if he gets that place open in time. So that's coming. But on top of all that, I was approached by a YouTube fan in Canada, Vancouver, Canada, who was sending us boxes of coffee and candy. This is not Mark in Canada, but Andrew in Canada. I have another one that watches, didn't buy anything from me, but loves the videos. And he has a company that kind of runs itself and a staff. And he said they're bored. He said they're making all this money and they do virtually nothing. He says, I've been watching your videos, maybe you should write a book. And I said, well, we used to joke about it. I used to tell people when we were giving gifts out, birthday presents and stuff, and we'd hand them a present, and I used to say, it's a book, it's a copy of my memoirs. They always got a great laugh. But this guy was serious, and he said, why don't you get all your memories, your ideas, everything you've encountered over the years, both good and bad together, and put it in a book form. So I said, well, I can certainly do that, but I mean, what games do I pick? So what we did, unlike other books, pinball books you've had, there's a lot of great books out there, and now I understand they're trying to get this Stern history book out. That looks great. Books are not easy. You need a crew. And this man said, I will pay all the expenses. I'll cover everything. He even flew my daughter and I out to Vegas and put us up. We had a great time. We shot pictures. I think a lot of you may have seen it. And he's paying for the book, all up front. He's paying to design it. The book design, so far he's got in labor, because he has to pay his 7 employees. He said he's got about $30,000 invested in this first volume. Now once we get the first volume running, we'll have it down pat. We'll be able to knock them out a little better. Cost of the books, just to print them, they're going to be 200 pages, full color, high gloss, and they'll be about an 8 by 11 size, so it'll be about this size, maybe a little smaller. And I'm writing the stories, I kind of say it in each story will be designed for a toilet reading. So you go to the bathroom for a dump or something, you can read one story. So that's how you design it. But we're going to do, I've written 27 stories so far. We're probably going to hit 30 pinball machines that we'll cover. And the experiences I've had with each individual model, we're covering all manufacturers except brand new stuff. I knew I was going to need some water at some point. So the books will cover favorites and some unknowns. Circus Voltaire is covered, for instance, but so is Big Game. Really good ones and then more obscure titles. And we're going to stop at 200 pages. There'll also be a whole section on each individual manufacturer and what we found the most important things you have to do to the machine. Now, it wouldn't be tailored to I was just telling somebody earlier, Star Trek Next Generation has a specific mod, I covered that in this. You have to put that tie-back wire in, or you're going to blow your board up. You have to. And half the machines didn't have it from the factory. It's actually in the manual, but the machines didn't have it. Of course, other things that are important, particularly for that game, changing the wires that go to the 2 turrets that spin. But basic stuff will be there. So if you have a WPC game, I said, what should we absolutely do to get our WCP pin going? There'll be a section for just that era. WPC 95 will be a section for the System 3 to 7, for instance, on Williams. The Bally Stern, our favorite system, from 77 to 83, 84. So you'll be able to flip the book open and reference it. There's also a whole section that's going to be, well, not a section, but we're going to cover 2 game rooms, collector's game rooms, in the book, in each book. But our website, which is pinballbuzz.com, as a matter of fact, I'm going to pass this around. Shameless plug. But this postcard has a space that I could sign later for if you want. But postcard directs you to the website, pinballbuzz.com. This is the publisher's website, it's not mine. I will actually not have any books. They are handling all the sales and they collect all the money. And then I get paid per book that sells. But the website has a free spot where you can upload up to 5 pictures of your game room, and they'll be up on the website, and information about your collection, whatever you want to divulge. But we were hoping that if you do send pictures, just have at least 1 or 2 pictures of you in it, or the family, or whoever's playing them. So it'll be kind of fun. There's another section for advertising, and he sent me a little thing. Let's see. The supply, a great opportunity, of course, for a supplier to advertise, and it's going to be on an even scale. The listing for advertisers will be exactly the same size for each person. It will have what they sell in a few words, their name, their website, and their phone number, and an address. So it's going to be a small ad. It's not going to be somebody buys a full page, somebody buys a quarter page. It's going to be all nice and even. So that section is handled by him. That's where he makes his money. And you pay a flat charge, and you're in every edition of the first volume. The first volume is going to have a run of 1,000. We've already sold a lot of them. We've had pre-sales up now. If that continues, when we get closer to the publishing time, which at the latest will be September 1st, we're hoping to have it out sooner. We'll add extra to the printing order too. So volume 1 is on schedule. Volume 2 will be out for Christmas. We were kind of shooting for the Pinball Expo in Chicago. I'll be doing another completely different seminar there. actually not on pinball. He asked me to do it on video games, arcade video games. Well, hopefully, maybe you can come out to that one. But we hope to have it there, but we won't. But the publisher is sending a crew out, and they'll have a booth there with the book and such to sell future volumes. We planned 10 volumes. We're thinking the 10 volumes will cover, if all goes well, 300 to 350 machines. We're asking you to put suggestions in them games that you'd like to see. Each of the future editions, each of the future volumes will cover different eras or themes. Magic is one era. We met Penn and Teller while we were in Vegas, and they were telling me about their love of pinball. Well, we were out at the Pinball Museum. Oh, that's wonderful. If you go to Vegas, it's 10 minutes with an Uber from the Strip. You'd be absolutely foolish not to go. We just had a great time. Tim Arnold runs it. Tim is a very unusual man, but without Tim, we wouldn't have this legacy. He's left this wonderful collection of games, and it's just wonderful. And he runs it his way. When you run a business, you have to run things your way. I think a flat rate is the future. I've been pushing flat rate arcades for 30 years. But pay as you go, I just don't think you'll experiment on games you've never played. You just won't. You'll walk right by them. You can play it, try it. You might. I don't know. I think you'll do better. But that may change. Who knows? Randy Senna's the same way. He has pay as you go. And I said, you're bothering with these stupid quarters. They get stuck. I lost my quarter, and I said, just make everything free. Flat charge to come in. But the Silverball Museum in Asbury Park, if you've been there, that's a flat rate. There's also several others. The Game Vault is flat rate. They're springing up everywhere. You can see that. People like this. They like the classic stuff. They like it presented in a certain way. You keep an eye on the time, because we don't want to run late. Because I know you want to go to the auction. Yes, you got to go to the auction. Bags! Remember that game? Oh man, I wonder if they have another bags at the show.
I think they have an infinite supply of those.
Infinite, what an awful game. Oh my God. I gotta buy my bags. Anyway, well, the auction is at 12, so we're hoping that our thing will be over 11:30, so you have time to go to the bathroom, pick up a sandwich, and then head over to the auction. It's going to be so much fun. I'll make sure it's fun. I brought a big truck, a 400 square foot truck. I'm going to buy every game in the auction. It's under $1. He's upset with me. Dave's upset. He's flustered.
You're gonna leave something for the other bidders.
I don't know. I'll wait and see. Anyway, so each copy of the pinball book will have tips to extend your life of your pinball machine. As we mentioned, we'll have some celebrity interviews. There'll be stories, which is what I'm writing. The Collector's Corner, which is what you'll provide. He's going to do micro pictures, sort of like, can you identify what the game is? A real super close-up of stuff, and then there'll be a key card at the end. I think this first one is kind of simple, but I said, come on, you can come up with better micro pictures than this. Give him something obscure, like Black Sheep Squadron or something like that. But there'll be pinball history too, and then other things that we pick up as we go. We'll have an employee page. That was just added. He didn't want to have employees in there. I said, well, they're part of the thing. Frank is part of me. You are, right, Frank? Well, at Pizza Hut.
You start off by saying that it was my idea to shop a game? No. I wanted nothing to do with it.
No, he didn't want to do this.
Shop a game, like, oh, really, great.
We have to
Watch
do it
was I
quick.
take this nut off.
Well, that's why the video speeds things up, see? So, yeah, we're going to do that, yeah, which is true. And, remember, can you switch to full screen?
Yeah, Frank's gonna be talking.
Yes, Frank's going to need a mic. Yes, let's get him set up with a mic. While you set him up with a mic, I should play the opening title. So if you could switch to full screen. me preparing for $6 Million Man. So I spent hours training so you could see me. Well, I had to stop the coffee. I spent hours. I had to put that in. No.
Nice flat top haircut there.
You like that? See, that was filmed, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. But I said, you know what? I got to put that in. It's in the $6 Million Man video that we've done in the past. So I said, I'll just borrow that clip. So now you know we're doing the $6 Million Man. We kind of threw this idea together to see just how much we could teach you in a video. But the nice thing is Dave's going to have it on their site, the video, and I'll have the full frame version with the direct HD video that I filmed on our regular YouTube channel at some point. I still haven't finished the Pinfest video. People are upset. The Pinfest video that I filmed at Allentown is almost 4 hours long, and it takes so much time to edit. And I've just been busy with this in the book. But anyway, we are ready, I think. What do you think? What do you think, Frank?
Sure.
Well, I always try to think we're ready, but we always have to ask our counterparts if we're ready, because I never quite know for sure. Are you done? We want to get started here. We want to get started. Thanks. Frank, here it is. Can you tell everybody why we chose this particular game?
I asked for a ballot game, and the reason why is because I love this system. From the early games, it's the best. It's better than everybody. In the 7 years or so that it's been used, it's been relatively unchanged, with the exception of adding some additional lamp boards and tons of soundboard variations. Otherwise, it's very simple, it's elegant. The test menu is perfect. You push the button once, takes you to a lamp test. Push it in again, takes you to a display test, and it stays in that test. You don't have to wait for the lights to flash once or twice and hope you catch it. It's all right there. You can check it, you can fix everything. It's a great system. It's a simple system, and it has a lot of expandability if you play games like Medusa. It has tons of lights and all kinds of stuff. It's just a really, really good system.
It is, and then they came out with the 6803 system.
Oh. They went downhill with that. But so I asked for a Bally. They gave me a $6 Million Man. Just so it happened that we had one, and we sold it. So we're kind of killing 3 or 4 birds with one stone here.
Yes, and you get the chance to see the one below, as we'll cover both things. Frank, I think it's important that we start with this machine, and then we'll switch to the below machine.
So what we're going to do here is the far extreme of what you can really do to restore your game. If it's your own game, it depends on your budget, it depends on your skill level, it depends on how much time you have, what you want to get out of it. If you're not familiar with the game, meaning you've never seen it powered up, you just got it in, you're going to want to go over the whole thing from top to bottom. First thing I check and usually replace is the power cord. Even though if it looks okay, it's still almost 40 years old. Replace it. For a few bucks, it's not worth risk of fire, getting shocked.
Especially if the ground is broken off.
Right.
Just take a peek.
This one is okay.
Ah!
So you buy a lottery ticket because you never get this lucky.
I'll tell you what, let me take the glass out.
Yep.
And we'll get this out of the way. Let me put this someplace where it won't get smashed.
Knowing you, you'll break it because that's a beautiful one.
Guys, it broke!
That doesn't surprise me.
What am I gonna do?
Order a new one. Call Bally's Parts
We
Department.
were just kidding. Did we shock you? Now, I'm gonna pick up Mr. Camera so I can show you up close what we're doing, right, Frank?
Yep.
Okay.
So we open up the machine. We already know right off the bat there's a boatload of stuff that's just going to get done regardless of anything. This is going to come out. We're going to replace the capacitors here. We're going to resolder all of these pins. Sometimes you have to reflow these transistors too. We actually had a situation where a game didn't work right because the transistor wasn't reheated. So targets weren't reset. I don't remember the game. You'll have to look up the video. Soundboard, same thing, caps, reheat. Lamp board we're going to take out because we're going to put in there the LED board. Logic comes out. This is the board that's going to take us the most time. This is relatively clean. It does have a little bit of corrosion around the edges. To really do this board right, well, obviously you put my battery board in there. You clean it, you reflow all the pins, and you got to change these sockets. This is a great system, but it was problematic. These sockets are almost 40-some years old. So many problems can be repaired just by changing the sockets. The other thing with these boards is if you have a really funky problem, you change every chip on here and it doesn't work, it's these traces. These traces, they can get a tiny little break in it, you'll never see it. I can actually show you some pictures that I took of some boards that I fixed. The board was working perfect. Change the sockets, you do the sockets one at a time.
I'm showing the pictures now.
The Williams games, like a System 3, 6, 7, whatever, you can take all the sockets out, change them all at one time, put the board back in, it'll be fine. You change all these at one time, and the board doesn't work, you're screwed. You do one socket at a time, because if it doesn't work after that, then you know the problem is right there. And usually, sometimes these pads get a little bit of oxidation, a little tiny solder blob will jump 2 lines together. Do them one at a time. If you're not comfortable doing it, then don't do it, put an All-Tech in.
I noticed that the battery board has a code on it. What year was it replaced?
I can't make it out 3...
Look at that.
I can't even see the numbers.
Well, I've put the numbers up on the screen, but you know why? That board battery probably didn't leak much, but this was one of our games, Frank, we sold over 25 years ago.
When did you switch to the yellow and white stickers?
That was
years
before
ago.
my time,
Yeah.
originally, It was years ago. So this was a trade-in. So back then, of course, I was using that battery. In 1999, Frank, I started using lithium batteries, and boy, did I get ripped. It's not original. Well, people learn their lesson.
Well, the other thing, too, is we were switching to a weird battery. It was a half of a AA, had leads, you had to put ends on it. When it died, the customer would have to call us, and we'd have to send them one. So we started experimenting with coin cells, and then that's when I came up with the idea for the battery board, so we can do it here, and somebody who wants to do their own game at home can do it there. And the nicest thing about my battery boards is it's very simple. It fits right into the existing holes in the game, has the diode on it. The board on this game has a NiCad battery that was rechargeable. So somebody put a remote battery pack on here, which is nice, but it's a pain. You gotta take the board out, the thing's flopping around, or if you disconnect it, then you're losing all your settings. But I've actually seen acid. All right, can I take over, please? All right. So anyway, before I was rudely interrupted by myself, yes, I do have the battery board, so come see me for that. So that's what we're gonna do. We already know we have to do all that stuff. This guy here, we have to put this cage here. You don't want to touch it. I'm not gonna do any cheesy shock tricks. I don't want to do that.
Please do a cheesy chalk trick. Just once. Go ahead.
Nope.
No. Oh,
So we take this out. No, take this out. Replace the bridges underneath. Replace these resistors. I have these. 9 times out of 10, you got to repin these connectors. Repin the headers here. Change the pins on the board. It really depends. If you look in here, you can see this one's a little bit brown.
Frank, I just thought of something. You could write a book.
Funny you should mention that. I was planning on it. Basically, a book that will cut. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do it. The initial book will at least talk about the basics of game repair. I'll probably go into some really great detail. One of the things we'll talk about is parts. I spent a lot of time over the last several years looking up parts, replacements, part numbers, because people always call and say, where do you get this? How do you replace that? Put it into a book form, talk about things like connectors, the proper way to repair connectors, not these half-assed repairs that people do, the stuff that keeps me up at night, the right tools, how to do it. A correct repair should look like nothing was ever wrong to begin with. That's how you properly fix a game.
Hey guys, can you let Frank and I show the insides of our game here, please? Can you do that? Thanks. Okay, Frank, why don't you take over?
So back as I was saying, you have to, when we used to put the lithiums in, you'd have to change that resistor right there, which is right here, and put a diode in. Because if you try to charge that battery up, sometimes it'll explode or catch fire. We've actually had it happen. But my board has it on there. So all you have to do is just take the old battery out, solder this in, you're good to go. Same thing with the WPCs. The little diode short out. We've actually had people have to call the fire department because the diode shorts, tries to charge that battery, it explodes.
Why not use a super cap? You know, 1.5 farad super cap.
There's so many different, right, there's NV RAMs, there's all kinds of stuff. This is the cheapest, simplest thing you can put in.
Okay.
And that, I mean, you know, like I said, we can do whatever they want. Caps can leak too, the lithium batteries don't leak, that's really why we switched to the lithium. If this battery dies, you can run down to Walmart, CVS, grab a new one, pop it in, you never have to call us again. And even if you have to replace batteries in the next 20 years, it'll still be cheaper than an NMD RAM.
It's a 2032 battery
Yeah.
that we're using, the one that opens your car.
Right. So this game's actually in pretty decent shape. Maybe I'll make the owner an offer on it.
$100.
I see they put in here the upgraded power supply unit, so we really have to do anything with that. These newer units have the beefier bridges, which is really nice. The little ones overheated too much, and if the people didn't, there's a heat sink compound you got to put in there. I've seen people leave that out, and it just destroys this board because it gets so hot. But this, of course, will need the same thing, the caps. All the pins will need to be reflowed. Soundboard does have an issue. I'll talk about that a little later, but I think this board has a different problem. You know, all the displays will have to get serviced. The play field itself is actually very clean. It's probably had very little wear in an arcade.
Yeah, we'll cover the playfield later, though.
Okay.
Just on the boards.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think, Frank?
Well, we're gonna cut back to the video.
Come back to you? Ah, okay. Well, now it's time to tackle the playfield, isn't it?
Yep.
Is that okay with you, Todd?
Who cares what he thinks? I don't.
Oh.
I could care less.
Well, what do we have here?
Well, this-
I'll tell you what, let me get the camera and we'll do a close-up.
Okay. Well, same thing. There's standard stuff we do in every play field. First of all, everything comes off. You don't have to do everything in one shot. These older games are much simpler. You can take lots of pictures. You'll save yourself a lot of headaches later. You'll be glad you did. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Obviously, all the rubbers need to be replaced. Back in the day, we were using the black rubbers. Somebody replaced them with some white ones down here, as you can see. We have some broken pop bumper parts down here. The rings, these skirts are. Replace as much as you can, because when you have all new parts, the game, and everything's cleaned, as many new parts as possible, this game will play like it's brand new, and you'll probably never have a problem with it as long as you live.
Well, you know why we originally used the black rubbers. As a matter of fact, pinball manufacturers use them too. The black rubbers, like, never break.
Well,
It's
then why did
amazing.
these break?
These break because the white are bleached.
No, I mean, why weren't the black ones still on here?
I don't know. But it could be we put the... See, white rubbers, A, look better. They look a
brighten
lot
up the
better.
game.
And number two, they are definitely more elastic and more lively than the black rubbers, Frank.
Ultimately, it comes down to whatever you want. It's your game, put on there what you
They're
want.
actually the same price, too, Frank.
Yep.
Now, I noticed this quality seal of sticker.
Well, that ruins the game. So if you see one of those on your game, offer at least $3,000 less.
Well, let me tell you, we don't put stickers like this on anymore.
Thank God.
But we do put a foil sticker. This will get a foil sticker either here or here, just to annoy the people. There's a few people out in that audience, right out there, that
Maybe
hate
even
me.
you.
They hate me, Frank.
Not as much as I do. Believe me.
Oh, we're gonna get more thumbs down. Oh, well, how can we get a thumbs down in the seminar, Frank?
I 3 thumbs down the video. Talk about the magic of editing.
Well, listen. When we sold this game, Frank.
That's what I think of that sticker right there.
Oh no, that's the wrong figure. When we sold this game, Frank, it was only $6.99.
Are you still spending the money?
Yes, well, we didn't do a lot of things. As a matter of fact, Frank, you noticed right
sticker
off the
on.
bat. What do you see here that's drastically, horribly wrong?
This is blasphemy, this Gottlieb flipper on here.
Yeah, now on top of that, we on top of that, these boots are
Not to
shot.
mention this, look at all this play this thing has. This thing's had a lot of fun playing
Well,
with
the
this game.
creeps, the people that owned it before they traded it in, they said it was a dream.
Like a nightmare.
They were happy they bought it from me. And look, Frank, I think that could be their scores.
That's
right
actually
there.
mine. I just did that tonight.
Well, Frank, why don't we go down below and see what's going on with the playfield there?
So this play field's actually in much better shape than the one we had. Has the same pop bumpers are broken, the caps are burned. That's from the bulb. That's why we like to do LEDs. It helps keep that stuff from happening again. There's very little wear on this. It needs rubbers. It just needs a good cleaning underneath.
Are you done? We want to get back to your interruption here.
No, Frank, that's a miscue.
Nobody to blame but yourself.
No.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really nice flippers are going to need to be rebuilt. They're probably original. You we put new drop targets, and all the switches need to be cleaned. You clean all the contacts, and it'll just play great. You really never have any problems with it. You can do the star roller over upgrade like we do, put the clear ones in and put a color changing bulb behind it. If you want to get carried away like I do and really take these pop bumpers all apart, take these apart, clean everything up, all new parts, sleeves, I mean, it'll play fantastic. You don't have to do all that. I would say at least do all your coil sleeves, clean the plungers, and that would be good.
Yeah, the play field is very involving, and you never know quite what you're going to encounter, as Frank knows. And so we always struggle to try to do each piece.
Are you done? We want to get back here.
There's
thanks.
interruptions.
Yeah, what a fat, stupid.
Yes, you are a jerk.
Oh, but that's my alter ego.
Can't say I didn't say it to your face. All right, let's take this logic board out and we'll get started with that.
Yes.
Frank?
Well, I'm not going to take this logic board out, but we already did look at it, and you saw that it at least needs to be the battery mod done. I'm sure it's going to need to be reflowed in the back. Do the sockets. Like I said, you got to do these sockets one at a time. These boards are real touchy. I've actually done all the sockets, had the board running, and then it would start acting weird. I actually had to repair a trace under one of these chips. And it wasn't for a game, it was just a board that I had that I fixed and we were going to set it aside. So I toss it off the side and get pissed off for a while and then come back to it a little later. I have a tester, something called Fix It, that goes on top of here. I was looking up the Valley Aid tester in 2-bits. They might still have it. It's a great tool. It fits on here, and you can use the onboard RAM, ROM, and reset circuit, or you can use one of the tester. It has all the games on it, like an Altec board. So you can use it as a permanent solution, or it'll help you troubleshoot. Well, even with that, I was getting really weird problems. So instead of this, I would take it apart and look, and I started tracing out the bus lines. And even though I repaired the one trace, it didn't take. So I put a 0 ohm resistor on the backside of the board to fix it. So these traces were really real. So the physical, where people bring me a board, they replace every single chip on it. I couldn't figure out what's wrong with it. Do the sockets, so it didn't work. It's just the board. The copper is so thin. There's nothing you can do with it after. Unless you want to fix a couple of those traces. It's only 1 or 2. It's not too bad. I've replaced many, but it's really what do you want to do with it? How much you mess with it?
Frank, why don't we do the other side of the play field first? Stopped.
Well, here's the bottom of our play field as we're starting out with it. The nice thing about the older games, you can flip it over, it makes it so much easier to work on. All right, so you can see the bottom side doesn't look too good. Pretty much what we expected for a game that's got this much wear on it. All these need to be taken apart, cleaned, and rebuilt. Same thing with the slingshots, flippers, of course, and the stroke switches. Plunger and link's going to get replaced, and we take this all apart and clean it up. You've seen in other videos how I take these apart and clean these up real nice. Once everything's cleaned, it will work perfect for a long time. These caps, this is a pretty big funky cap here.
I like that.
Yeah, this you can reach your neighbor's house with that cap. But the caps make the switches a little bit more responsive, which is important for switches where the ball could just tap it. Something like this, where the ball can just tap it quick. Something like a star rollover. The drop targets where the switch stays closed for a long time, or something like a out lane or return lane, where the ball doesn't go over it too fast. It actually has some time. It doesn't really need the caps.
You know, Frank, I was surprised that Bally didn't do a revision to the logic board that would have added these capacitors to the switches.
Well, that's the nice thing that they didn't change those boards. Those boards didn't change much over the years, so they didn't really need it. It was just as cheap and probably even easier to just put the caps here. And by the way, my book will have the part numbers and where to get them. Gotta shamelessly plug myself there. I need the money. You don't need.
But I need the money.
Well, you'd spend all the money, so it doesn't matter. The pop bumpers, you don't need them. And if there are caps on there still, break them off. You don't need them. They just cause problems. Especially something like this where I've seen shorted caps will cause the pop bumper to fire a whole lot. Burn up the transistor, burn up the coil. Don't need them there. Take them away. All right, so this is the board that I took out of the game. It's got a lot of stuff on here, so I'm going to start sanding this rust and corrosion off. It's going to be a few hours, so if you want to get some coffee, take a piss, whatever. Yeah.
But, Frank...
I got another board. So this board was on the shelf. It was marked locked up. Now I serviced it. I took some pictures of it. So it was marked locked up, or locked on. This is a newer board. This is a 133. This was in the Granny and the Gators or Baby Pac-Man. There's only one mod you got to do if you're going to use this in a regular pinball. Is you got to change that diode to a 2K resistor, which somebody already did. So the problem that was wrong with the board was the reset circuit had a failure. So I have this tester. Ooh, let me go get it. So this tester was from 2-Bits. I don't know if they're still available. This is probably about the best $150 I ever spent. I fixed tons and tons and tons of these Bally boards with this. The beauty of it is it has all the games on one ROM, kind of like the Alltech Logic board. You turn all the dip switches off, it'll have a test menu. You can get a keyboard, which I bought, and then you can step through all the different tests. But the best part about this board is it'll work on any of them, even the MPU 200s.
Which is the Stern.
The Sterns,
machines.
right? And it fits over these pins, which tend to always get bent up. And if you're servicing the Sterns and you have the Stern soundboard, like say a Flight 2000, you can still connect the soundboard pins right to that. But the best part of this is it'll isolate the RAM, the ROM, or the reset. So you can put the jumper to the left to use the onboard components, or to the right to use the fix-it components. So this tool, you kind of have to be smarter than the thing you're effing with. It's an old mechanics term. So what you can do is you can take, what I did was, because I had a reset problem, I switched it over to the reset on the fix-it, and nothing happened. But then the game started powering up, and then I realized, well, there's no flashes because the LED fell out. So put an LED in. These two the one transistor was bad. I just replaced them both. As you know, in the reset queue, was it 1 and 5 or whatever? One's a 4403, one's a 3904. Swapped them out, fired right up. These ROMs, the RAMs, processor, and PIAs are off of the other board. So I switched everything over. I actually cleaned the board. I take it to the sink. I wash it with some simple green water, blow it all off. I like working on nice clean boards. I don't like dirty boards. So the only thing we really have to do to this now is, now that it's up and running, is we'll reheat all these pins for the 4 main connectors. We'll clean out the tabs of the old battery, put my battery board on, and we'll throw it back in the game.
Any questions?
Yeah, you guys don't emphasize ESDs too much in these videos. I don't know if these people do electronics or not, or if they know anything about ESD. You know what I mean by ESD, right?
The only time I ever had an issue was I dropped the transistor to the floor, and I must have thought, I picked it up, I discharged through the transistor, and I measured the transistor after, and it was bad. I've never had a problem. This, I mean, obviously all electronics are sensitive, but it's not as sensitive as like if you're taking an iPhone apart. You certainly can do it, we just never do it.
You don't have too many problems when you do IC chip changes without being, you know, with a static wrist guard and all that stuff on.
In over 20 years, I've never ever used a wrist guard, ever. I'm not saying that it's a good idea, I just, you know, some things work in theory, not in practice, and vice versa. So if you feel more comfortable doing it, then certainly do it.
Well, I use a wristband when I go to Disney World.
That's the buffet.
The buffet. Did you were there last night?
ESD safe tools though, too. So you want to make sure your soldering tools are ESD safe. So that's always good. Don't buy a cheap one.
Do you want to talk about the flash zones? There's usually an LED on those.
Well, there is, and it'll tell you, I don't know exactly which one, what code does what, but one's for the 6810 and one's 5101. Then there's one for each of the PIAs, and maybe one that checks the ROMs, and then the last one is your 43 volts.
It's a terrific test system.
I look it up. I mean, I don't remember, you know, there's not going to be any more money in my paycheck if somebody says, what's Flash 2 mean?
An extra penny.
So I just pull the book out of my phone and I look it up. And
I'm curious, why not replace the connectors? You know, you said you reflow them, but they
Well, you can. Well, that's the
have
pins.
oxidation on them too.
It depends. It depends. I do. Sometimes I'll take an emery cloth and I'll just sand them downside and stuff. If they're all mangled up, I throw them reset.
Yeah.
Now with these, what I'm saying, there's the oxidation. You'll know if you're reheating the pins in the back, as soon as you touch a solder to it, it'll ball up and the pad will be black. And you can't get that solder to stick. Take them all out, and then you take either a fiberglass eraser or a emery cloth, clean them up till they're nice and shiny, both sides, put a new one in, and you're fine. And that's what happens with these sockets. That's what gets me. As soon as I see them falling up, I'm like, this is going to be a problem. But a lot of times, you push them to the board and it starts working again. So.
You want a solid connection, and I don't know if we mentioned in the video, we use the lead-free solder or silver solder because our guys are hovered over these tables for 2 or 3 hours breathing in this stuff. So lead solder is fine. Rosin core solder, lead solder, it's fine if you're just soldering a wire in your flipper. You're occasionally doing the soldering. You don't have to pay 2 or 3 times the cost to buy rolls of solder. I spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on solder every year. But my guys are still here. Nobody's going to have that stuff in their lungs, and it seems to work well. So remember, if to reheat every pin and every board, it takes a long time, especially you have to take sockets out, which you're going to see further in the videos. Frank, it's your cue. It's in blue.
Okay, let's continue the game, but with talk.
There's the old lamp board. Unplug her. One at a time.
We'll clean out the tabs of the old battery. Put my battery board.
Yeah. Time. There's the old lamp board. Unplug her. One at a time. Now you may be able to sell the old lamp board, or you just keep it as an emergency spare.
Parts.
Parts, yeah. But we're going to take this out. Now, the other 4 tabs are easy to remove by squeezing these little white plastics, but if you have a puller, that's even better, because you just press that in and pull it just a little bit. You keep your finger on it so you can pull it off a little more. Yeah, needle nose pliers will do it too. This one's being trouble. I may not be able to put the board in after all. Frank, you didn't even leave the board over here for me.
Do your own work.
Now, we already put another one in this. So we're not using this one because Frank has his that he had made ready for this game. Because we happen to use this board. Ooh, I almost lost it down the center. We use it on every game we sell because we are putting LEDs in every game. But not everything. I guess we had 1 out of 100, Frank, that don't get the board put in. Yeah, wasn't that quick. Now, the last step, after plugging these in, is in fact attaching that wire. You see, if you don't put the wire on, the lamps will flicker. You don't want that. That's the whole purpose of changing the board. Now, Frank does it fancy. This is his connector, and he wires it into the connector with pins and all. You do not have to do that. You can simply plug this in, like so. Okay. It's a tight fit.
The whole game across your big galoot.
Oh, Frank. This end of the wire has to be soldered to one of the computer-controlled lights.
The power for the computer.
That's right. Now, let me show you something. You see here? This is the general illumination. And you can always tell that in your Stern or Bally game because it's bare wire. And they loop all the wires together, and here's the in. This brings the 6 volts in, sends it all around the board. The lights you need to look at are the ones that have this same bare wire, but the other side has a single wire on it. That means the computer is turning the lights on and off. This ground wire here has to attach to the ground power, right here.
We're telling people to run the thing.
That side. That's right. Well, not to this side, but to this side. See? Now, Frank has done it up here already. See, look. He's tied it all in so it looks like it's literally factory.
That's the whole idea.
But you
If
you don't want to do that.
then just
Yeah, you could thread it through here if you felt like it.
you just don't want it to get tangled on, caught on anything.
Right.
Break off or
You could also cut it too. And then you'll solder it right there. And all your problems will go away. In terms of your computer lights flashing. Now we have not changed these LEDs to this playfield yet, but that's next on our agenda. Now, I want to show you something because this is general information. Most of these games have a ground strap. I'm going to teach you a little trick that has nothing to do with that lamp driver board. This ground, see how somebody installed it like this? This wasn't us that came in this way. You see, this loose wire, if I close this door, okay, and that loose wire encounters the computer-controlled lights by some chance, it will blow the fuse when your light transformer board, your transformer in the back, the computer-controlled lights, blow it. And I remember we couldn't figure out what was wrong with a customer. He took it to Florida, couldn't figure out why the fuse kept blowing. It would be fine. An hour later, the fuse is blown. So he thought the driver board was bad. He said it turned out that when he put the screw in after he got to Florida, he put it in such a way that this part was up just enough, and it occasionally encountered the light socket, depending on how he shook the game while playing it. So make sure that part is safe when you're after you install your new board. Now the auxiliary lamp driver board is just as easy. Some games use the smaller board. Alltech sells two. They sell the regular size and the long one, and they're usually mounted on the side.
You like the long ones, don't you?
They're here, Frank. It could be over here, it depends. You have to tie them, the ground, into the same place, like any computer-controlled light circuit, and you're home free. Now, wasn't that easy? A child could do it.
A child could do it.
How many times have we rehearsed doing this? 15, 16? So it isn't that easy for you, at least.
But McCoy said it could.
How uninteresting. All right, well, the board's in. Put Todd's stupid little sticker on it. I write the date on the battery, the month and the year, because it should last you about a good 5 years. So if you know a couple years has gone by and you want to pop a new one in, you can. So the board's done. It's in. Battery board's on, obviously. We have the lamp board installed. As your stomach through Todd doing that. I'm not going to plug the power in until we have the LEDs on yet. We don't need it. We'll deal with that later. The only thing I recommend, though, is that if you use the Alltech one, it doesn't have any kind of shielding around it. So maybe put some shrink tubing, wrap some tape. If you're going to be powering the game up before you're ready to make that connection, you don't want it to short or anything, because then you're going to blow that fuse out again. So now we'll pull the soundboard out and start working on that. Board's out. We're going to take it over the sink and wash it up. It's already been reheated, but we're going to do the caps. I don't like dirty boards. It's more professional looking when it's clean, gets all the crud off it. You can see any other potential problems maybe. So let's take it over to the sink and wash it up.
Oh, good, Frank. We get a chance to see you washing.
Yep. Little $1 2.5-inch paintbrush, some simple green, slather it on there. Yes, you can do this. People ask me all the time, it's electronics, can you wash it? Yeah, as long as there's no electricity going to it. So put your logic board, take the battery out, obviously. The only thing you really need to be careful of is that it's very dry before you plug it back in. So you can do one of two things. If you have compressed air, use compressed air in a hose and blow it off, get all the water out from underneath the chips. Or you can let it just sit, let it propped up, let it sit for a couple days.
Or even in the sun.
Or sometimes even what I'll do is I'll just put it in front of the fan. We have a box fan in the back. Just stand it up in front of the box fan. Let it sit there for a little while. That's usually enough. And if you're unsure, just let it sit for a couple days. It'll be fine. Board is clean. It'll run a little cooler. It looks better. Looks like a more professional, complete job. Well, I'd wash your hair, but the chemicals required to clean that rat's nest is so strong, I don't have the proper licensing in this state to handle those types of chemicals. Sorry. All right, so the soundboard's in. It's capped. If you listen, maybe put the camera down by the speaker. Hear the hum? If your game's doing that or it's making noise, it's because the soundboard doesn't like to be grounded. So you can take one of these ice washers or a similar plastic washer, put it between the soundboard and the bracket. So put the little plastic washers just to keep the backside of the board from touching the ground plane. If you put the screw back in and you see that it does it again, you might have to ream the hole out a little bit just because there might be contact between the screw itself and the metal. And then that will take care of your humming problem, and the board will still be secure. One thing I want to talk about is this big cap right here. This is a 100 microfarad. This is a 250. I took a picture of the one in the board before I took it out. It's a 100 by 100. A lot of soundboards have big caps, usually 4700 by 35 volts. Somebody trying to help me out one day put a 4700 by 35 volts in. I reached down to turn the game on. I saw the flash of light and heard the bang, and the cap exploded because it wasn't rated enough. Don't forget, the soundboard gets 43 coil volts to it. So caps, as a rule of thumb, need to be at least double the working voltage. So if there's any power spikes, it can absorb it. My point is, be mindful of when you're doing this. I did it on a black night. I put a big cap in 100 by 100 backwards, and that made a hell of a mess. Don't feel bad about sending a part to an untimely death, because if you're not blowing shit up once in a while, you're not doing anything. Just don't get hurt. Don't be too close. Just remember that. Don't get hurt. That's a big cap in there, and when it explodes, it's going to make a mess, and you don't want to lose your eyes.
Does anybody have any questions at this point? Okay, Frank, how about the soundboard there? Do you want to look at that soundboard?
Well, we think it might happen. I don't think it has a humming problem. It has another issue because it's not. Speaker unplugged. Yeah, this is playing a tone constantly, so that's not the same problem. See how it sounds like one?
Turn the sustain down, Frank. Okay, now start the game and see if it plays. We'll need a credit.
Give it a credit, see?
Fixed.
There it is, see that?
Fixed.
But this doesn't have that hum problem, and they don't always do it. This one's screwed down to the metal, so you just have to probably play or see if your game does it or not.
It's also possible, once the caps are changed, they're 40 years old, that sustain will have to be adjusted. But that's why they put it there. That holds the extra tone a little longer. The game doesn't sound quite the same, but it gets rid of that constant tone. So I think that'll work well. Okay, I think we'll continue with our video.
Now let's look at the driver board. All right, so the driver board's out. I'm going to take it apart. Of course, it's going to get my cleaning. First, we cut the caps off. Let's cut the wires. Cut the straps. Now, one thing to know about this board, if you're going to clean yours, is that water will get stuck underneath of these heat sinks. So you got to take them off. I take them off anyway. I like to clean the contacts underneath. And this board, this is why we reheat pins. These over here are why we reheat pins. I've seen people just reheat a couple of pins and leave the rest, which is ridiculous.
So basically, Frank, right around here is the cold connection. Can you see that little
Right
line?
here.
If you wiggle the pins,
And these are your flippers. Your flippers aren't going to work. This one's up here is a bit more obvious. This one right there.
so cold solder joints. Frank, remember for years they told me it's foolish, you don't have to do it.
Now, one other thing about this. Before I pulled this out, we ran it through a coil test to make sure everything works. Everything didn't work. Problem was, this didn't fire. This didn't fire because the coil's physically broken. The gate didn't work. This fired twice. This fired twice. These didn't fire at all. So, usually you'll suspect the driver board. Put another driver board, same thing happened. Pulled the logic board out, just made sure none of the pins were splashed together, which for me to do that is very, very rare. Swapped out the PIA, just took a guess. That fixed it. So what I did was I took the PIA, threw it over here into my little tester, Neo Lock. They have a couple of test kits. These things are great.
And we bought this at a show, didn't we?
We bought a memory one years ago. I bought this for myself at Christmas. My kids got it for me. And it does PIAs, it does the Riot chips for the Gottlieb games, it'll do RAMs. This will also do the 4116s and the Williams games. It'll do almost every chip you could need, RAM and PIA wise. But it tests okay. So what's the point? The point is a part can test good and still not be good. So when you're troubleshooting things, you got to be smarter than the thing you're effing with. Remember, I told you that. don't always trust it 100%. Swap in a known good part, because a lot of times that's what you're doing. Test procedures aren't foolproof. Sometimes you got to put in a known good part. Use your head. First, let me start off by saying that I hate you.
Good. That's
All right.
good.
So the power supply is all done. Change the two big caps. I changed this little guy to it's a 2. I put a 2.2 in there. No big deal. As you can see, it's nice and clean. I washed it. I take the heat sinks off to make sure you get all the moisture from underneath. Somebody blobbed a bunch of solder here. Usually don't need to do that, but somebody must have really, really torqued these screws down, and the washers actually cut the tray, so it wouldn't make any good connection there and there. Reheated all the pins. Actually, I changed these pins because they were all mangled up. So I put fresh pins in there, reheated it, cleaned all the flux off. Nice and clean. The high voltage sticker was coming off, so I put a new one on. Measured all the transistors. Usually, sometimes you have to reheat these, so just take a peek at them, wiggle them if anything feels loose. Reheat them. We'll throw it back in the game.
Okay, Frank, can you show the stages of that transformer in the game now? What it looks like?
This is a replacement.
Oh, somebody changed it. Who's in charge of continuity here? Okay. Well, then, since that's replaced, we can't point out all of its flaws. So instead, we will continue with our transformer replacement.
Alright, so we got the transformer unit out. I already took it apart, pulled all the old bridges out. Somebody had reheated this before. They actually did it sloppy as far as I'm concerned, because I like to clean all the flux off, but that's just me. This is a really simple board. There's not much to it. You got 2 resistors, bridges, you got a varistor, fuses, and header pins. The only thing I don't like about this is that you have to work on it like this. Everything's tethered. The Black Sheep Squadron, the Astro, was great because it unplugged. You could take the board away and not have to work around this.
And look, the original transformer. Notice there's no cage around it. Where you could, because the Bally one, all the tabs were open. Well, Astro chose a transformer where all the wires are sealed and it's safe. So there's no way you can get a shock. So the only way to get a shock is... Yeah, I squeezed it in, Frank.
I squeezed in moving the camera right there.
Loser, I'm trying to make these things, these events, happen.
They're not So everything, we replace these 2 resistors, which I have here. These diodes are for the high voltage for the displays. I already have them pre-bent. This little lead forming tool is very handy. So after we do that, we're going to change those. We're going to change these 2 resistors. The header pins are okay. Sometimes you have to replace them all, especially if somebody comes and just solder wires to them. That's the stuff that makes me crazy. So nobody did that here, so these are okay. Actually, a little bit of emery cloth, so you can clean them up, make them nice and shiny.
You could also use the big eraser.
Yeah, but this is easier because you can't get to the back side with the eraser. So you can't get to the side very well. So scuff it up a little bit. We'll change these. This resistor is part of that circuit for the high voltage, but you don't have to change it. That only goes to the test point. And the only reason that's there is to prevent you from putting a meter on or something that's going to draw too much current and blowing this up. That's all that resistor does, so you never have to change that. All right, so I have the diodes are in. One thing about these boards is sometimes you need to clean these off. For some reason, they sometimes get this weird oxidation. If you try to solder, it doesn't want to stick. So just hit it with your fiberglass eraser, all the solder points, and then just drop them right in. I mount these a little high because these do get hot, and letting some air circulate around them will help them hopefully live a little bit longer, but even more importantly, not burn the board, which is what we want. Sometimes you gotta push it through, bend over the leads. Same thing with this guy. Now what I do is I blob some solder on the back and on the top side too, because sometimes it doesn't always flow all the way through. Alright, so now we're ready to set this back on the posts. We'll put the bridges in. There's no markings on the back, but the negative is always the bottom left, positives the upper right. And if you ever, sometimes the silk screening wears away if you have to clean it or it gets burned up. You can always tell the negatives because they're all tied together. That's the negatives are always in the same spot. Just before you put it on, just double check all your wires, because sometimes something will stop working because a wire will pop off and you might not even see it. It's such a mess under here.
So the Astro Gaming Corporation had a slightly better idea for the bridge.
Well, they thought ahead for service.
And I also knew that Stern, Black Beauty Shuffle Alley, also had a plug on that board. So that was in 1984, so I guess if they continued using that system, they would have had plugs on them.
A little bit of goop. We're going to clean this old goop off of here. This is pretty crusty. We'll just wipe it off and put some fresh stuff on. Lock it in there. Now I like to put the screws in and tighten them down before soldering, just to make sure, because it's easier to do. If the bridges are soldered and they're slightly off, the holes might not line up and then it's just going to be a real pain. So screw everything down first, solder the leads on last, and you're good to go. Alright, so transformer's mounted back in. One of the connectors is burned. Got a couple of burned pins, so we're going to go ahead and change it. See, the housing's actually starting to break off. So you change the whole housing. Already got one ready with a key in it.
And you can get them from Marco and other suppliers.
I get these from Mauser. My book's going to have, my repair book, my parts book's going to have all of this information. It's going to have pretty detailed information for parts, repair procedures. You want a good set of ratcheting. Crimpers. Feed the wire in. Crimp it down. Nice clean crimp. You just go down the line one at a time.
And that's a Triuricon connector.
Yep.
And I noticed you're sliding. You're not doing them all at once. You're doing one at a time, so you don't screw yourself up.
Well, you can, because you're going to leave a little wire, but it'd be foolish to do it that way. Just do one at a time. Take your time. This isn't something that you rush, especially if you're not. If you don't do this every day.
Plus, you could even blow up the thing too.
Right. So one at a time. Feed it in, crimp it down, nice clean crimp. And we'll go ahead and finish these up. We'll either work or we'll have flames. Where are you putting your money?
Nothing. Frank, nothing. It's not working. It's not working. We love doing that. Don't we?
Talk about this weed shit.
Now look here. We started LEDing it, but everybody got kind of bored, so. Frank, this should have been done.
Why isn't the
Okay.
guy that's supposed to be doing it?
Okay, now it looks like all the boards are done now, Frank, except what?
Well, I'm going to do the displays last.
Uh-oh.
Thought I was right. I'm running out. All these displays are junk.
Junk?
Dead or burned.
No, we'll sell them to somebody, people that don't know any better.
So you're selling them yourself.
Could be you. I know, Frank, we'll put them up on eBay as
Tested.
untested.
So I got two here.
Untested.
These were tested. And of course, like boards, I wash them too, so you can see the difference between a clean one and see the difference with one that I haven't cleaned yet. Just one thing with these, obviously you got to reheat the pins. If you have a digit out, 9 times out of 10, if it's not the glass, it's going to be one of the first 6 odd-numbered resistors, are 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. If you do have a digit out, you put the resistor in, and it's fine, then change the other ones. These odd, squared-off brown ones tend to burn out, so I'm going to just change these. I got the tool heated up.
You have a tool?
I got a tool already, the one holding the camera. I got a bunch of resistors already pre-bent, ready to go.
Pre-bent? Who bent them?
I did. I'm going to bend you in a minute. You're going to look like this, except not that skinny.
You mean
Nowhere
you
near
sat
that
there?
skinny.
Let's bend some resistors.
Well, of course. I mean, you got Johnny's on Facebook or Scotty drawing pictures of Kurt on the whiteboard. I'm going to waste time too. Works for everybody else.
I'm going to bend. No. On my time.
Actually, I did them at home. All right, so pins are all reheated. Remember I showed you the resistors? I had a digit out and just replace them all. Don't waste your time. You got the thing out on the bench, do it all on time. It's all clean, ready to go. Pop it back into the game.
So all the displays now are done.
So if you show from the back, you can see they're all clean, they're all stickered.
I see you put our sticker on there, and then we can tell when we did it.
Mm-hmm.
So that way,
So we know that it's ours.
yes, that's another way. the stickers don't come off. They're permanent.
That's bullshit. But also now's a good time to show that I did change the power cord. Need some light in there, buddy.
Mr. Light.
I took a few pictures of it as I worked on it. So what I do is, they just have some crimp connectors. I put a connector in here, so this way I can take the whole thing to the bench and service it. I put in a new varistor, then take a length of wire and put a connector on it here. So this way, because the cords aren't as long as the old ones, and this way you can just change it down the road. If your cord breaks, we can just put an end on it. And we have a new.
With 3 prongs, Frank?
All three. No, I break the one off. I break this one off. Anyway.
Oh.
So that's done. Oh, I don't know if I said I replaced the varistor too. It's 40 years old.
And I see the panel's been cleaned.
Yeah, I think you're
all the
Walt
crud
did
from the
that.
light bulbs. Yes, Walt did this earlier. Builds up over the years, and that's all been washed clean with Simple Green.
So now what we're doing is we're going down the line and cleaning all the switches. I put a little black mark on it so I know I did it. Because I take the switch off. The ones that get caps have all new caps. I take the switch out and I clean all the contacts with a little eraser.
That's this little cap here, and then also you can get them from where.
Jameco, my parts book will have all that information in it.
So that makes the switch closures more sensitive, so the game reads them.
Well, some of the switch isn't as closed as long. Like these rollovers, the switch will be closed for a little bit of time for the computer to check it every few cycles to make sure that it's closed. But these, it's just a momentary tap. Same thing with these star rollovers, so these need caps too.
I'm always amazed, Frank, that they didn't put that on the updated board. When they went to the 6803, they still didn't have anything for the switches.
No. So now, because you came over and interrupted me, I don't know where my little eraser got to.
So,
So anyway, I take the switches off, I clean them. They have a long blade and a short blade. Bend the long one, because this is the one that gets activated by the rollover, so it won't hurt it. If you bend this one, it'll be back out of the way and it won't make contact, you'll be fiddling with it. Just take the fiberglass eraser. It's tedious work, but if you do all this, more than likely you will never have any problems with your switches, not unless you have the game and you're still alive to play it in another 30 years.
how about me, Frank? Will I be alive in 30 years?
In heaven. You'll be
In
locked
heaven.
down.
Heaven, you said heaven.
Heaven for us on earth, because you'll be gone.
Oh.
You'll be a
Fine.
celebrity on the obituary page.
Do you hear that? Do you hear that, Frank? You're making fun of me on screen, and now.
I make fun of you all the time.
And wait a minute.
Why do you think people watch the videos?
Look what he's doing to me.
He's a mean person. Frank, you just take advantage of me repeatedly.
You set them up, I'll knock them down.
Well, listen, how about if we do the bottom play field? We'll need some little ass assistance to flip over Mr. Field.
Well, we did go over it before. We did show the bottom. I will flip it again one more time. And show that this game does have the caps and the pop-ups, which we're talking about. What we're talking about, you can take them out of the pop-up for switches. So this isn't my game. I don't know the owner. I'm not going to mess with it. That's but like I said before, these switches stay closed for a long time. The lanes, the ball takes a few seconds to roll over it, so the switch is. But something where the ball just taps at the stand-up targets. Throw the caps in, they're fine.
What's the cap value?
It's a 0.1 and 50 volts. Little ceramic disc cap in it. Actually, we didn't have a picture of the part. I could give you the part.
Frank, it may be on the stills that we have coming in.
Yeah, I think I have it. But anyway, you just 0.1 by 50 ceramic disc cap. Just you got to be careful because sometimes they're really tiny and the leads are really short. So you're trying to stretch it out. So make sure that they're a little bit bigger than what you need, and then this way you can put it in through the holes and then trim off the excess.
Frank, why don't you point out the flipper condition and the switches?
Yeah, these are pretty much original. It looks like nobody's ever changed these before. You can see, you really got to get in there. You can see the pinning on the contacts.
Yeah, then the stroke
Unlike
switches
two
are simple.
transfers from one side to the other, and it breaks down over time.
But also return your flipper to full power is the plunger and link. And
And the
Steve
slusher.
Young makes them.
That white bushing, that'll make a difference too.
That's right.
But the nice thing is they can't come with everything. Some of the kits come with all the screws, come with everything. So for $50 or whatever, get the kit, place everything, and it'll be fine.
The flippers are always your weak link, wouldn't you think so?
Well, not only that, but if the left flipper doesn't work, you can't play the game at all. The
switch doesn't work, well, you can't play with features, but at least you can bang the ball around a little bit, so.
Well, I guess, let's see, well, the pop pumpers we're gonna go over in detail. They're probably all wrecked.
Yeah, this game's in better shape than the one we had, but, yeah, I mean, definitely be doing yourself a service, just replacing everything, cleaning everything, putting in all new parts. It'll look great, the action will be phenomenal.
Okay, well, Todd, are we ready?
Okay, we're back again. Frank, what have you done here?
Hate you for that.
You hate me.
We got all the LEDs in, got them in the back box here. All the displays are done. I rebuilt this one slingshot so far, so you can see what the difference between one that's fully serviced. Now I had to replace this arm that was broken, but when you take it apart, this coil was actually broken too. Right here. So the tab was broken off. So just found another one, throw it in there. Coils don't go bad, not unless a transistor shorts and it melts it, or something mechanically breaks it. Other than that, coil's never going to go bad. But I took the bracket apart, cleaned it, cleaned the spring, cleaned the plunger and link. I take the switches out, I clean them, put everything back together.
Here, let's look
and
at
it
this
works
one.
like it's brand new. And this is one that hasn't been touched yet. So you can see the difference.
Yeah, there is.
Huge difference.
Very nice.
And we'll get started on the flippers, do the pop bumpers, and we'll be ready to wrap it up soon.
Now that you're done underside the playfield, can you show us?
Took all the pop bumpers apart. I got pictures that completely took everything apart. Even washed the coils. Took the switches out, desoldered them, cleaned them, clean and adjust the contacts. Everything up top's replaced. We'll show that in a minute. The brackets are clean. The spring. I ended up replacing the Bakelite and the metal bracket because they were pretty worn. So put new ones in. Same thing with the flippers, new plunger and link, end of stroke switches, fresh wire for the new end of stroke switch, new spring washer. New
I see you
sleeves.
also put the
Gonna put the heat shrink on there, so it
here,
doesn't-
and you need that
Any
so it
issues?
doesn't cut the new end of stroke switch.
Yep.
So, do you think this will last the person another 20 or 30 years?
Well, these things should never have to come apart ever again, unless
In
they
a private home, definitely
12, 13 hours a day, or unless a transistor locks on and melts a coil.
Do you have close-ups?
Got a few. They're $8 each if you want them.
Plus, I said freight.
No, they're $8 each if you want them. 50 picture minimum.
How about if we show them up here? Actually,
Depends if you
no,
come
right
up with the money
here.
or not.
Wait a minute, we're on the big screen
You're not
now.
going to see the pictures because you didn't come up with the money.
I can do it right now.
Okay, Frank, because we probably won't have time to show it, can you show some of the new supplies that you have, that you brought, that you normally stock with? In other words, before you start on a project like that, you have to have certain things in the things we brought here. We weren't sure how we were going to do this, and since the machine has had a lot of work done to it, it wasn't necessary.
Full rubbers, obviously. You always get a kit. Flipper boot.
Yes, if you don't stock or do a lot of games, you can buy a specific kit of rubbers from where you
Sleeves.
get them from.
Just replace all the sleeves by itself. If that's all you do, that'll make a big difference. The flipper boots, even if they clean up, they crack.
You change the boots. The shaft has usually got wear in it, and it doesn't grip well.
Flipper rubbers, of course, comes in your kit. We do the clear star rollers. If you've been watching the videos, there's a piece of it you got to knock out, and then you get the.
Yeah, point out that the $6 million van comes with red star rollovers, and they lit it with a 44 bulb underneath. Well, if you put a clear one in, a brand new one, first of all, it works beautiful because everything's nice and clean, and you can choose whatever color you want to light it with from underneath, so you don't have to go with just red.
And if it was never lit before, you can light it.
That's right. We light a lot of our rollovers now.
Color changer or fire or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, you can hook the light up to a computer-controlled light if you're using LEDs. See, the original transistors, most of them only support one bulb, sometimes two.
That's the difference between there's the two rows. The little tiny ones are for single bulbs. The bigger ones in the middle are for two bulbs.
On your driver boards, right?
Another thing is a barrel spring. A lot of people forget that. Either it's broken or it's just crusty. I mean, you gotta
Your
check
barrel
the
springs are all rusty, for sure. Some people paint them.
LEDs, your multicolored ones that you would use for under your jewels. I usually tell people like, I like the original look of the bulbs, but the original bulbs do so much power, and that's what burns those connectors up. It's 20 amp fuse, it's a 20 amp circuit. You can cut the fuse, you know, the amperage by half. So just use warm white. On the older games, the warm white, it looks original, you're saving power, you're saving heat. There's really no reason not to do it other than cost. It is still pretty expensive.
Right, now that means that you should change that 20 amp fast flow fuse to a 10 amp or less, because it won't blow out as easily, because obviously with LEDs, it's not gonna draw anywhere near 20 amps.
And if you're really going crazy, new posts are always nice. I mean, they're just a few cents, I mean, just adds a few extra bucks. You're taking the whole thing apart, you might as well do it with matchsticks. When the holes get egged out, you break off the
Wooden
matchstick in there.
matchsticks.
Yep.
They're great, so you have a hole, the screw won't tighten, you stuff a matchstick in the hole, you snap it off.
There's only one game.
You
that
try to
this
stuff
doesn't
another
work on. Does anybody know what it is? It's a Bally 2-player game. Yeah, it's, I got that weird phenolic. I jammed 50 of these things in there, screw would never bite.
Yeah, Speakeasy
They
doesn't like
bite, draw through,
matchsticks.
and then put it.
It's a plastic play field,
Yeah, it's
that's
phenolic.
why.
It's some type of weird material. These are the little caps, diodes, some zero resistors if you have to do any board repairs. Contact cleaner, this is what we call this blow off. This is great for getting stickers off, like residue, like guys use goof off, and that takes the paint off. If you're careful with this, you can take sticker residue off, clear the flux up, and it won't damage it.
Now we ordered that, it's actually really cheap, that big can is under $5. You can get it from AVW in Florida. The letters AVW. If you buy a case, they give you a special discount. We always order 4 to 6 cases at a time because we use a lot of it. It's great stuff. The most important part about that is it dissipates. It disappears, so it doesn't leave any kind of coating behind.
But it's very flammable.
Oh yes, it
Be
is.
careful, make sure. Don't spray it on the mechanical and then turn the game off. Leave it sit for a little
You
while.
never spray anything on a mechanical, because as those wheels start to turn and all the sparks go, you're gonna have this big flame. It'd be just like that
Yes,
guy
that's
with
how
the
we
barbecue with a match, throws it in, poof.
This is a power cord, I already put an end on it. It's always nice to put an end on it when you're doing it, so if you have to change it later, you're not messing with that one solder stuff. That's really pretty much it.
It covers a lot there. Well, we do have some stills too, but you should always start with as much stuff before you start taking your game apart.
One of the things we did was pledge. Actually, Jason, if you watch our videos, the guy used to do almost all of our games, said to me a few years ago, he uses pledge in the older games. And it works because it's a different wood, different coating. In the newer games, you know, they have the
Novice.
diamond plate or whatever. He likes to use Gojo, I don't like it. I use simple green to clean everything off and then hit it with some pledge. It'll be
Yeah,
beautiful.
we have our differences, but John Sheehan worked for me for many years. The creep actually quit at 89 years old, because our mandatory retirement's 100, but he left at 89, and I couldn't keep him there any longer. But anyway, he taught us the Gojo rule they've been using since the 60s. That's when he got in the business. It's the original formula, only the original formula. You buy it at the auto parts store, big can of it. And it's great because you can dip your fingers in it, you can slop everything all over, and when you're done, it's like you just put lotion on your hands.
But wait a second, old guys like me will know that Gojo in the 60s, 70s, 80s is not what it is today. Completely, it's not as good. It's like a lot of
It's still
products.
very good. It's a great product. Gojo at the auto parts store. You'll really like this stuff, and then your fingers, you
Just
use
don't
it.
get the pumice.
Yes, right. That's not the original formula. It says it right on the thing, original formula. So that's what we suggest. The pumice means you can clean dirt off your hands, and the pumice helps you get all the crud off. But this is what mechanics used for many years, and it works great for the playfield. Obviously, you wipe the whole playfield clean, and then you can put the lemon pledge on it. You can buy pinball wax too, but lemon pledge,
But the pledge in
hold.
older games works better than the no wax.
Yes, it really does. Some people, well, they love it. Just gotta
When a
keep
guy
my
that's done
thumbs down.
500 playfields tells me that, I think I'll take it.
Yeah, it works out well. I'm trying to think if there are any other tips on the, well, we covered the matchsticks, where you stuff as many in as you can and then break them off. Your hole's fixed forever, unless you're playing the game every day. You know, a lot of people are putting these machines back into commercial use. They're going into barcades, so they will require repair. I mean, I've been in the business for years. You put a brand new pinball on a location, it gets hammered on for 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, it's gonna break. It's just the way it is.
So
But
there is one good thing to show in this machine.
Yes.
So if you were here early, you would see that the one player display for the two didn't work. display test. So we wiggled it. Now it's crapping out.
Cold.
Close up.
Solder joints.
Well, it's a little bit more than that.
The glass also sometimes gets cold solder joints. I
Somebody
noticed that in stern
Actually
games.
tried to reheat this,
Ah,
and they didn't heat it up enough. And that's why. It's getting power around, but it's not getting data, and that's why it's screwing up. So you've got to take your time, get it hot enough, make sure the solder flows.
fiberglass eraser, or you can use, obviously, the emery cloth.
No, I'm talking about the backside.
Oh, the backside.
You got to heat it, they didn't heat it. Somebody tried reheating it. Look,
I got a side view.
but they tried reheating it.
What
they didn't
creep
do
did
enough.
that?
I did.
Yes, everybody tries, everybody experiments, but you know,
Take your time.
yes, that's probably the easiest way to sum that up. Well, we have some stills to show you from our $6 Million Man experience. Nice, clear close-ups. The first thing I want to do is show you, everybody's making custom parts for your pinballs now. It's amazing. Have you been out there? There's some great ideas. We've been experimenting with classic arcades. Jeff up in Wilkes-Barre, and he came up with a great set of targets for Charlie's, or for $6 Million Man with characters from the show. And we liked these particular, there's the old targets that came out of it, and here are the new ones. And he has characters from different episodes from the show. And they look beautiful. And he hot stamps them in their cheek. Frank, this is your part. That's a pin that many of you have seen, the soldered direct pins, because nobody takes the time. Frank, you take over.
That's the big cap. That's the replacement cap. You got to make sure you check your voltages. That's where you got to clean the moisture from underneath of the heat sinks. It'll get stuck in there. And I don't know. I never waited to see how long it would take, so I'm gonna take it apart, clean it up, and you can see how the traces were screwed up there. So I reflowed solder around them.
I can stop at any time, Frank.
Let's go real fast. That's just pictures of the finished board. These are as I'm going. We're changing the power cord. Took it off on the bench. Put a connector so I can just plug it back in again. We take it back out for service. Put the new varistor in. Add a pigtail to it. So because the new cords are a lot shorter than what the old, original ones were. So you don't want to make it real short, but you don't need to plug it in your neighbor's house either. So.
Now, does anybody know a varistor is what's inside a surge protector when you buy that outlet strip? It's just that little disc. That's all it is. That will blow up when there's a surge on the line. Its design is to save your game and your electronics. Your microwave oven has it, your TV, everything has a surge, has a varistor. I love the way that rolls off.
Fuses protect excessive amperage draw. Varistors protect excessive voltage. So they're designed to short. That's what it does, it blows the fuse. So people say, turn my game on, it was a bang, and smell something burning. Well, that's what happened.
It's pretty great when they call and they say, oh, well, everything in our house got hit, and what do I do? And Jesus, and I say, well, open up the game. We tell them where to find the line transformer. In the valley, it's out in the open. In the Williams games, they're inside the little silver box, the Data East and things. And I said, take the box apart. And I said, look for the line transformer, and soldered right across of it, you'll see that varistor, and you'll see a hole in it. Of course, it'll keep blowing the fuse. You just break it off and turn your game back on, and it'll probably work. You have a 98% chance there'll be no damage to the game. Obviously, you should put another varistor on it when you get a chance, but you can certainly use it in the meantime, or plug it into a surge protector. Now, for about $400 in your home, especially if you have a big game room, the electrician, it has to be done by an electrician, will install a 10-year surge protector, guaranteed. Put it right in your fuse box, in your circuit breaker box. It has a little light on it, tells you it's running, it's operational. And that will catch any surges coming into the house, especially these days when power failures are now more prevalent than they were. So you break your whole house. If you've got 40 games in your house, you better do it. I had 40 games in my basement, and I had one on there. So that gave me some peace of mind. Because remember, lightning doesn't care if the game's turned on. Doesn't care. I remember a story of a lady that had a Black Knight. She had 3 or 4 video games from me. And a Black Knight Pinball and then the videos. and they were in their bed, and they had this terrific lightning storm. Terrific lightning storm. And suddenly, the lightning came through her window in the bedroom, and this lady had foil wallpaper in her house. She was into that. That was the era of it. And the lightning got onto the wallpaper and went throughout her house, blackening all the walls, and it went into all the video games and the pinball machine. They were turned off. It was night. The varistors blew up on all of them. Pinball machine we fixed, but all the video games, the electricity came out through the tube. All the video games had discolored tubes. When you turned them back on, the colors were all off, as though you didn't degauss it, and we couldn't fix them. So she needed 3 new picture tubes, which, of course, the insurance usually covers a lot of that, but it was a tough time. So that's the power. Now, in that case, the varistor blew up on all 3 games and saved them, so they still work, but it didn't help with the video games. But anyway, we're going to continue our slideshow. These are close-ups of our $6 Million Man before and after, Frank.
So that's the pop-uppers before I took them off. You can see that their bodies are just totally shot.
Do you see the holes inside them?
That's underneath, obviously. On the bench before I took them apart. Just a couple, I just take a bunch of pictures as I go, just to try to document as much as possible. All the switches before I clean them up. As long as there's little spoons, don't have any holes in them, they clean up nice, clean the switch contacts. Start taking the top. Anybody knows it's done, it knows that it's not a trivial task.
Oh, it's awful.
Rebuilding pop bumpers.
It's awful. What an awful job. Now, I will stop the video to point out, we suggest that you put 555s back in the pop bumpers. The old bayonet base, they twist, they bounce, and then they shake loose. The 555s seem to stay in solid in the sockets, and you can buy the sockets, the long leg ones.
Well, on this one I had to put the 44s because the bolts were all too tall, and I didn't have anything short enough to clear the cap. So, but I put in new sockets and it was fine.
Yeah, we still stock the 44 sockets.
Sometimes you gotta use it. So that's, just step by step, those things are going back together. If you're gonna do it all in one shot like I do, take pictures just so you remember where all the wires go. All the parts are cleaned. A little bit of a Brillo pad to the brackets, cleans them up real nice.
You can buy the wafer and the metal thing, brand new.
I was gonna try to save the other ones, but they were pitted real bad,
Yeah.
so I just changed them out.
Sometimes it's just better to replace. Plus the parts people will love you. And these are new pop bumper caps. That fellow hot stamps them, the original, the Jeff Classic Arcades. We did an upside down view so you could see the side view.
This is the flippers. Obviously, same thing, take it all apart, clean it up with new stuff. Sometimes, I was telling somebody yesterday, those brackets, they're actually reversible. And I had one game where somebody drove big wood screws and they egged the holes out. So I just took everything off and switched them over and then just switched left and right.
It's
It
wonderful.
was fine.
You don't have to buy a new bracket.
No.
Look at these brackets. They're actually mirrors printed on both sides. You can, if you have
Which-
one buggered, then you switch it.
Which is smart because they make one bracket. You can use them for, you don't have to stock more part numbers.
Yes, Williams did not. They said no, we want you to buy a separate bracket. But Bally thought ahead. It's a very, very clever idea. We find that the 6803 games in particular have drywall screws jammed in them, holding the coils shut. Baby Pac-Mans also had them. I remember we had a lot of them. So we're all reassembled here, Frank, I think. Let me see. Nice, shiny, and neat. Complete with heat shrink.
Will work great. A little bit extra work now, you'll have much more playtime later. That's my little one, she always wants to help.
Since she
All
was
she
at the
says,
shop.
Dad, I want to fix game, that's all she wants to do.
Yeah, she
Comes
told
over
us.
and raids my tools, as long as I keep her away from the cutting stuff, I'm
Okay.
It's really cute, yes. Frank has two beautiful little girls. Ah, we love our kids, don't we? Especially if we bring our kids in young into this industry. This is into the game, the hobby. Because if you think about this, when $6 Million Man was made, it wasn't made for you guys. It was made for an operator who purchased it to make money. Didn't care. It was $6 Million Man. He could care less. He didn't care anything. What he cared about was when he got there at the end of the week and he opened the door, that cash pan was full. He didn't care if Lee Majors was on the glass or anything. He didn't know any of that. He also cared if the game held up and worked. There was no collectability to this. He was going to use it until it stopped making money and then dump it. That's what they did. They dumped Addams Families and Twilight Zones. We used to buy it for $800. We sold them for $24.99 into the home market because the vendors were done with it. They didn't want to deal with it anymore. Pop-upper brackets were breaking. They said, it's time to retire it. Sort of like a car. You know, you get rid of your car maybe when it hits a certain mileage point. Some vendors did that. Game gets 3, 4, 5 years old, they get rid of it and get a new one. And that was the mindset, and that's where it was. The collector market started, you know, for me, as all you know, in 1984, when we discovered a lot of people wanted the games in their house. They just had no way to get it. You know, started out of the driveway, the garage, started selling the machines. You know, we're over 27,000 machines later, got all these machines out there. We sometimes get them back in trade. So sometimes they come in trade and something like that $6 Million Man you just saw in the video 25 years ago. They got rid of it, they retired of it, they got something different. But I guess, are we ready for the grand finale, Frank? It's not that grand, but you know.
Okay, we're ready. We're ready. Frank, look at it.
Well, I can't take credit. I didn't do all of it. I did have the wrong flipper bats on, put the right ones on. We built the pom bumpers again. Everything here is new. The rings, the body underneath, the main body, the ring, socket, all new. Should never have a problem. And the action you'll get from fully rebuilt pop bumpers is unlike you'll ever see. So you take a little extra time, take them apart, fully clean and rebuild everything. They will work fantastic.
I see there's a fire LED up here for the explosion. And these were popped out and replaced with clear and a color changer under there. It's very nice. The only thing left, really, Steven has to do the targets. He's going to repaint them. Yeah, that was the last step, and he had to leave, so he couldn't finish it tonight in time for our video. But we wanted to make sure you saw the finishing touch. We do have our cards here, but you notice down under here, it's all clean. Yes. Of course, this is lit too. So the back glass is almost perfect, and it's all LED, as you saw. It's absolutely beautiful, Frank. It really is. Now, the question is, Frank, is the machine down below us as nice as this?
No. Oh! I haven't seen it before, so I don't know. Could be better than this, probably.
I don't know. Frank down there, what do you think of it?
Dolph already found out what I think of it.
Well, obviously that one's done this.
All right, let's go back.
This was actually starting off in much better shape, so it could be just as nice, if not even nicer. How much money you want to put into it, how much time you want to spend on it. Yeah, it's all up to you.
Yep, it's all up to the person that's actually doing it, and you can never be sure.
Yes, and good night from here back at TNT.
Thanks for watching.
Yes.
We figured if we do a little bit of this, we have enough time for you to still get to the auction, or hit the old finger in this thing. No, we don't want to start it again. We don't have another 2 hours to it, Frank. No. But what we're going to do for maybe 15 minutes, and that will still give you all enough time You can switch to the slide if you want. The questions about what we do with the overhaul, we can first start with.
Let's do it through the audience.
Okay, good.
Line up here. Line
If
up
you have questions, it'll be easier. He wants to do it through the microphone because he's going to put this up on their website, this video.
on our YouTube channel, new this year.
The new YouTube channel. That way everybody can hear us clearly.
Hey Todd, great presentation, thank you.
Thank you.
What do you do with back glasses that have some flaking on them? Do you do like triple thick and try to repaint them? Could you talk about restoring back glasses?
Yes,
So that they're stabilized and can be used. And I'd also like to know about like clear coating play fields too, like after you do touch-ups.
Okay, we decided, well, a couple things. So back glasses, Steve has been painting with us for years now. He uses different latex paints to paint. And many of them are, in fact, when they dry, you can see through them. If you've been watching our videos, you can sometimes see the end results. We are by no means spending 50 hours on these glasses. Some people go all out. If the glass is really bad, it's time to replace, get rid of. What we've found is that you can seal them after you paint them. You can use clear coat if you'd like. You can use spray-on gloss. We've been doing that for years, and we haven't had any backlashes from it. We haven't had no further problems. Some people like to use a piece of clear, heavy Mylar instead of the clear coat. That's an option too. You can buy that from Amusement Emporium. They seem to have the thickest and best stuff. So we always call them up and order 30 feet of it. And it comes in a big roll. It's about 2 foot wide, and it's priced by the foot. So that's another idea. The back glasses are just an issue. And as a lot of you know, certain brands seem to flake more than others, and we're never quite sure. The second part of the question, what was the second part?
Clear coating.
Clear coating.
The clear coating in the playfield, yeah. I just can't do it. I've seen some interesting results. They look great. I mean, some of the machines you saw played out there in the room look beautiful with a clear coat. It adds so much time. And if you do clear coat, you have to take everything off the playfield. You're going to have to replace a lot of parts because you take those 40-year-old, 30-year-old parts off, they're going to break. There are people that do it. There's a fellow in Maryland, George Kalos. I think he charges $1,200 for a full job, clear coat on it. Doesn't include rebuilding the below the playfield, just the upper part, but he scrapes it down, he does touch-ups. You can find him on Pinside. And he comments a lot on our YouTube videos too, K-A-L-O-S. Now he does it, and I'm sure there's other people that will do playfields. We can't tackle it, we just don't have the time. Now we do overlays. There's a new company that's now making these really nice overlays I saw. Overlays are hit and miss. You have to sand the field, you gotta make sure all the numbers are off. You gotta do a lot of preparation. If you do an overlay, you have to be ready. A replacement playfield's great, but boy, you're gonna have hours ahead of you, hours of joy. And no, it's not joy. We will not do full playfields, we just won't do it. I just don't have the time, and I'm not hiring extra people to do it. Sometimes I just have to tell the customer, no! Or I have to say, or, no! Or, I said no! Or, no! No! Amazon. It's called the no. So anyway, I had a lot of fun with that, so I had to introduce that. Any next question? Oh.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could comment on the technique to remove the old star rollover or any insert,
Yeah.
and then how you reattach the new one to playfield, how you glue it, do you sand it, do you put clear over it, or what the process is?
I would tap it out. It taps right out in a second.
Use a nut driver as big as you don't want to put like a Phillips screwdriver. So if you have a nut
On the
driver,
other side.
Yeah.
The flip side.
As close to the diameter as possible and just knock it right through. And then they usually pop right back in. Sometimes you might have to put a little glue
Star rollers are usually stay right in there.
Steve says I buy the most star rollers than anybody else at Pinball Resource. He said other than the people that stock them. Steve stocks many places, many of your favorite parts places. They buy the product from Steve because he's the only one that spends, 18 hours a day at his job, 7 days a week. He loves pinball. He's a wonderful guy. I spent hours on the phone talking about
One thing
all
about the
these
star
fun things.
rollovers,
Yes.
when you change them, you put a new one in, you gotta make sure it's flush with the play field. You might have to sand the backside of it.
Tell him what we had that problem.
And,
Oh my gosh. 8-ball deluxe, right?
Yeah, we spent hours on one.
Or 8-ball
And
champ.
There was, no, the 8-ball deluxe. There's a star rollover up in here, and the guys did an overlay.
Oh my gosh.
And they put a new rollover.
What a nightmare.
If you shoot the ball, it would never read the switch. If you
And
drop
the
the
funny
ball
thing is I didn't
backwards,
know.
it would read it. If you touched it, it would read it. Put a new switch in, changing the logic, putting caps on it. The rollover, the star rollover, the body was just a smidge higher than the play field, so the ball would jump over it. So after a couple hours, if I took it off, ground it down, and had to just keep trial and error until it was fine, and it worked perfect.
That was our one rollover issue. My gosh, and we've changed dozens and dozens of them. As I said, mentioned
But that's
before.
because the play field was sanded down.
Right.
So that's really gotta be more mindful, but even still, just make sure that it's nice and smooth.
That's a good point. So if you're putting an overlay on, you may have to do that. You may have to take an extra little layer off the bottom, the inside of the rollover. Plus, you can change it when you put a clear one in with a Gottlieb game, for instance, like a Genie that has all those rollovers, a roller disco. The roller disco in the center, there's 5 rollovers. They're all red. Then you put clear ones in, and you put color changers in, or 5 different colors. Whatever. It just makes the game look a little bit better. Next question.
Yes, hi. Again, thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate all
Thanks.
the information. When you were redoing the power supply board there with the huge traces that run along the edges, I know when I was redoing one myself, I pretty much had to use 2 irons in order to desolder the capacitors out of it, just because the thing's such a huge heat sink. Do you guys recommend a certain type of iron, or just something with a higher wattage, or how do you get around
We
that?
use those new Heiko, the FX 880D or something. They're crap. Anything that's got a big trace on it, I use my desolder in there. And I run that at about 150 degrees lower, than the other one. And that will usually do it, so. you
The
might have to
Hakers have been good, though. We've had.
Well, the new blue ones are horrible. The old brown ones we had, they were great. They would do it.
Couldn't get parts.
Right. So yeah, that's the thing, they discontinue it and then they discontinue the parts a few years later. So you might want to try it.
Possibly with the bigger capacitors, you could resort to a soldering gun.
Yeah, they
But
have the big pistol grip guns,
All right,
but
yeah.
that'll do some damage, so you want to be,
Well, that was kind of what I was afraid of. I didn't want to go.
experiment on a junk board until you get the feel for it. Like if that tip is bright red, which it will get, then, you just have to experiment with, just take your time and.
All right.
by the way, I could mention something about the soldering gun. If you have video games, the soldering gun is a demagnetizing coil. So if you don't have that big ring in your picture in your video game has a blob of color in it, take your soldering gun and turn it on and flow it all around the picture tube. Leave it on, pull it away from the tube, and you'll fix your picture. So you can use as a poor man's desoldering coil for that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next.
In the video that you did, it looked like you worked on all the boards except for the lamp board. You just replaced that.
Well, that was a clip from, I'm doing a series of videos for Alltech, for David Alltech.
That was because we put the LEDs in, and on these games they'll flicker. Before they came out with that board, I used to put resistors across all the lamp sockets, which
What a
would
pain.
take hours. And that's all that board does, it just ties a load on the line, so it allows the LED to fully shut off. Otherwise they'll ghost or they'll flicker, or they
Yeah.
will completely shut off. So
But
so
maybe-
we just put that board in now that they came out with that, mix them
Now,
up.
Frank, they may now make some even though they say non-ghosting, it doesn't mean that they're non-ghosting, believe me. They may make some LEDs that actually do non-ghost, and you can use the old lamp driver board. It's it's hit and miss.
So Frank, if you then put in that board, what is going to be the impact of running incandescents after that?
I've never tried it, so I don't know. Just disconnect, but if you're gonna put incandescents back in, just pull that power plug back off.
Yeah, I would think the incandescents would work fine.
As an aside, you can use the original board. There's a resistor board that you can add as
That's correct.
And that works perfectly.
We experimented with somebody who made a board that plugged into the connectors, little boards that plugged into the 3-edge connectors, and we plugged this into it. But some of them never worked, and they never figured out what the problem was. I don't know whatever happened to those boards that we were testing. We test a lot of stuff for people. We were testing the LEDs for shuffle alleys for almost a year before Marco actually produced those shuffle alley LED displays. He wanted to make sure they were going to hold up. We left the game on for a whole year. We tested over a year, and they did. We tried different things. We're testing skee ball display now for one man that's making them out. I don't think he's here at the show, but KAHR.
I think he's out there. He's
He is
not
out
the
there?
main,
Okay.
he's not the main vendor hall.
He makes that great little board if you're having reset problems on your WPC and you're kind of lazy and you don't want to change the bridge rectifiers, and you just plug that little board in for $40 and boom, your problem is probably solved. Not all the time, but probably. And probably got a 85–90% chance you'll solve your reset problems on the WPCs.
Thanks.
Thank you. And we have another one.
More questions?
You were still running good on time. It's only 11:24.
This one won't shut off like the interviews last night.
I got an interview in the gazebo area.
Yeah, we just posted it this
So
morning.
we're filming you, interviewing me, filming me, and filming, right? Something with the question.
Yeah, so we'll get it. Great effect. Looking at this from the financial side, obviously you took that machine in and traded, so you had no idea to what extent you'd have to fix it. If the customer had said, just fix this for me, and had asked you, okay, fix this for me and return it, what would have been the cost to the customer? And to follow up, because there are so many new people in the field that I suspect, unlike many in the audience, wouldn't even think of fixing their own machines. Do you anticipate a lot of those people, as they get into the hobby and start buying these machines, do you anticipate a lot of trade-ins because they have no clue that either how to fix it themselves or have no interest in learning?
Yes, actually, that's a great question, because we're now fielding a lot of people that don't want to deal with it. They buy something on eBay and they have it shipped right to us. We have a pretty good idea. A $6 million man, the shop job you saw, we charge between $2,000 and $2,500, because we don't know what we're going to find. We keep track of all the parts and such. We charge $65 an hour shop time. A game with ramps, more elaborate, going to be $2,500 to $3,000. In fact, we just did a haunted house. It came out beautiful, and we left for the show. We stayed overnight with Mike and Automated in Jersey. Jackie very graciously had us over. And after I arrived, I got a picture on my cell phone that the haunted house back glass from the overhaul was in a whole pile of little tiny nuggets. And nobody will tell me who broke it. Somebody said, well, maybe Frank did. I said, no, Frank's in the truck with me.
Probably Jonathan.
Jonathan, that little creep. No, he was actually down the shore. He was actually down the shore picking up an earth shaker. The lady, thought she did her research. I've done my research. I know what this is worth. I said, oh, okay. I know these are selling for thousands of dollars. I said, put it on Craigslist. Make it $6,000. As say it's $7,000, and then I said they're going to be lined up around the block. Pick up your earth shaker, lined up around the block. So a week later, she calls back. Well, maybe I'll sell it to you after all. And then, of course, she gives me that lovely message. You call her phone, and she gives you, call me, and we can set up a time. The mailbox is full. No more messages, Jeremy. Hello. So that happened. That was yesterday, actually. So, but anyway. That's what does happen, but that's a general cost. Now, somebody is sending us, let's see, we got an Adams Family, somebody dropped that off. Some people actually drive it here. They're heading to a show, or they're going to visit their friends or family, and they drop it off, and then they come back in 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. We have some machines in our warehouse that have been there for months. I hate finishing a game, and then the guy tells me he lost his job, he doesn't know when he's going to have the money, and the game sits there in the warehouse for 2 or 3 years. We've had it. That happens with layaway. I think I mentioned to you, I have a game on layaway He's been still making payments since 1999. Now, I did calculations with the money he's paid, and he will have it paid off in full in 2050. Okay, because I get $25, I get $30. I said, this is great. I said, I'll be here, I'll take it off the rack myself. And he said, do you realize that's 32 years from now is when you'll have this paid off? Oh, I'm gonna pay it off, I promise, I'll pay it off. I said, oh, I'll leave it up on the shelf. So, NBA Fast Break, that's gonna be an old machine by the time it finally gets that. Right? Game of the future. And in the meantime, I didn't bother telling him, but we robbed parts out of it for other NBA Fast Breaks. I'm not worried about finding the parts because this will probably turn into, you know, never be picked up or whatever. And it does happen. I've had people drop games off and I never hear from them again.
Do those people get back to you and say, can you, if I can't pay for this game, can you sell this game, pay for the cost and whatever?
And believe it or not, I've never had that happen. And I've lost track of at least 150 people that I never heard from again. And I either had their game or games, and then I do a 3-year guarantee. I hold it for 3 years, your credit's good for 3 years. If I don't hear from you, that's the end of it.
You can create an abandoned document.
Every month I sit by the shredder and I go, and off they are. Now, if they show up 5 years later or 10 years, I had somebody show up and he says, no, I put money down on a game. Didn't even remember what game it was. And I said, yeah, I put $100 deposit on this game, Ron. It was probably about 15 or 20 years ago. So I don't have the slip. Do you have the slip? No, I don't have the slip. And I remember I was here. And I said, okay, pick out anything in the showroom. I'll give you $100 off. And that's the end of it. They walk out. So that's it. That's what happens, you know. Now then you deal with things like this. It's still 11:30, folks, so we have some time. But I have to read you this email that came while we were doing the interview. I think I read it to you. Let me read this to you. It's precious. Now, let's see where she is. Just scan up here and find it. She said, I'm going to keep this and read it to you folks. I'm going to find it. It's got to be here someplace. I get a lot of people that ask me for free advice. So I love answering the free advice division. And people of all shapes and sizes call and ask, maybe under my old emails. Let me see if I can track it down. Oh, I see, Dave, you've posted about our talk today. I just see a notification from you. I have a bunch of you. Here it is. Now, this is 2 sentences, and I'll stop at the first question mark. The subject line is 1966 Casanova Flipper Pinball. That's the subject. Here it is. Hey TNT Musings, I was just wondering how much it would cost to get an almost fully functional 1966 Williams Casanova pinball machine. For some reason it shocks you from different places, oddly, but the playfield paint is chipped up and scratched, but everything on the playfield works. But you guys repaint playfields and touch up back glasses, right? Question mark. Next sentence. Because that needs done. And I can't really find the time to do it. I'm far away in Ohio. But how much would it cost to find out why it's shocking me and to touch up the back glass and playfield? Now, isn't that lovely? So I'd like to respond, dear idiot, you imbecile, or why are you bothering me? Of course not. I haven't responded yet. How should I respond to that? What do you think I should say? Call somebody local?
Wear gloves.
Wear gloves. What day do they pick up the big garbage in your neighborhood? That's a favorite one. I just thought of it, Frank. I'll ask him, do you fish? He said, well, yes. I said, well, listen, you know, you go out on one of those little bass boats, when you find a good place where the bass are biting, so tie a heavy rope around it, and drop it off the side to keep you in place while you fish for the day. And then when you're done, cut the rope. Float away in the boat. I don't know. I'm going to get a ton of thumbs down on that. I don't like that. But every day, I'm not kidding, I get 3, 4, 5 people. One guy emailed me, wanted me to call him and tell him why his shuffle light doesn't work. Because he has 8 children going to be at his house for a big party tonight. And he's got me, I have to tell him how to fix it. Didn't buy it from me. The guy bought it from, probably hangs up on him. Just constant free advice. But that's what happens. Did I answer that okay?
Oh, it was wonderful. My camera didn't even want to shut off this time.
You and your cameras. Anybody else have any questions? Because
Last call.
last call for questions. Now, of course, we'll be around all day. Oh, here we are.
The .100 female connectors, when you come across one that's got a bunch of bad pins, will you replace the pins or will you go to IDC?
You mean on the female side? No, I never use the IDC, I use the crimp ones.
Okay.
And it depends, I mean, if they're green or corroded, if you feel like doing it, it doesn't hurt to just change them all. It's a pain, but it will eliminate a lot of future problems.
It will. It definitely does. And it helps out. Remember, folks, take the Pinball Adventures card, so you know where to at least find it on the website. Please register your collections. Put them up on that website. We'd love to see a ton of you up there. Any of you that have businesses that want to advertise your stuff up there too, we appreciate it. The book comes out September 1st. During the show, Frank has his own cards now.
I have trading cards, and I made some little postcards up about my battery boards and also the Tommy boards. I don't know if anybody doesn't make the replacement servo board for the Tommies.
If you have a Tommy, there's 4,000 of them out there, and Frank has sold like 150 of them.
Something like that, yeah. I ran an initial run of 200. I did run another batch of 200, and I'm probably going to discontinue them after that. I can do small orders if somebody wants them down the road, but we'll cross that bridge and get to it. The other thing is, I was want to do a Frankenstein board, and a buddy of mine loaned me his machine, so I'm going to be
Sega Frankenstein.
Hopefully, yeah, for the Monster Head.
The Monster Head on that board is not made, and it runs on a pick.
Yeah, the pick's
that
bad.
that you can't get. They're not interested in making anymore. There was a copyright problem with Funhouse, and the head had to be completely random because Funhouse, Pin Nation, has a copyright when the eyes follow you. So they can't do that. The Simpsons Party Pinball head, Homer, does not follow the ball because that is also a copyright thing that they threatened to sue on. Even though Williams is not open and running, they had to make the Homer head random. But there's a stupid little circuit board that runs that Frankenstein head. So the motor's usually bad and the little board. So Frank's little board.
It'll come with the servo. It'll come with all the stuff you need.
Yeah, it'll be a complete package with it.
That board was designed to control more than one servo. So I might make mine, so if somebody wants something custom done with their game, they can probably just program the chip to do whatever else you want it to do. If you want to add a servo for whatever reason, or even on any other game.
And for under $100, you'll be able to get your Frankenstein head working again, which would be nice. That would be a nice feature. So we'll be available for Frank has his cards. We're going to stay here up front for about another 15, 20 minutes because we want to go to the auction.
Thank you.
And thank you guys.